Hello, and welcome to People Keep Dying, a podcast about people who die. I'm your host, Angela.
And I'm Stephanie.
And we're just going to go right into stories because I don't think you care about our boring lives.
Yeah, our lives were pretty boring.
I stayed at home all week. So this story is, it's older, and I actually have like an extra story in the middle. So it's kind of
when
weird.
you say older,
like,
are we like
1986? Older.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like,
so it's us.
yeah.
We're old.
Well, yeah, but that's like when we were born, not like
well,
when,
I'm 87.
Yeah,
but
it's
my
like-
brother.
but like around the time we were born, it's still older.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
It's not a recent murder.
You might have heard of the story because it was kind of a big deal, and I actually found a story because of I found a Cracked article where it was like songs that you didn't know about where that are about murders or something insidious or something.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that the article was that accurate because I didn't find a connection anywhere else except on the Cracked article and on Wikipedia, but that could have just been an add-on from someone who had just read Cracked.
Someone could have just put that
And-
into the Wikipedia.
Yeah, and then like the song didn't have that connection either.
Cite your sources.
So, but anyways, the murder's still real.
Yeah.
So Robert Chambers was
Okay.
born September 25th, 1966, and raised by his mother, who was an immigrant, Phyllis, and she was a nurse, and his father, Robert Chambers Sr., who was a credit manager. But in some stories, he was like a tape cassette trader or something. Like everyone had different ideas of what her dad did. I don't know
Maybe
why.
he did all of them.
But his dad didn't really take a big part, and I don't think he took part of a lot of interviews either, and that's why.
He probably also had he probably was everything.
Yeah.
Like,
and
he
then they
probably had a lot
eventually
of jobs.
divorced, so
Yeah.
it's one of those, yeah.
I mean, if he's not a major player,
Yeah.
who cares?
So, though not very wealthy, Robert was able to attend some very affluent schools through scholarships.
Okay,
This
so he was smart.
No, he
School-
wasn't.
Was it
that's-
like sports scholarships?
No, that's why I couldn't figure out what it was because he kept getting kicked out of these schools. And so he was like bouncing around schools,
But
then somehow he got into scholarships. And I was trying to figure out how that was possible, but people were
Yeah.
obviously more focused on the murder aspect of it than his personal life.
Okay.
But even in like
weird.
the Wikipedia article, it was like he got bad grades and he caused trouble, so he got kicked out. And I was like, then how did he keep getting scholarships to these other schools?
Yeah,
But-
that's
And his mom apparently worked a
Weird.
ton of hours to be able to pay for some things because I think scholarship
Ugh.
only cover a little
Yeah.
bit. So this was because Phyllis wanted a better privileged life for Robert.
because she was an immigrant.
Yes. Working many hours to ensure she could provide him with like this kind of access, including like this is like a fun tidbit, a play date with JFK Jr. Because she had like,
connections.
well, she had taken care of JFK Jr. when he had bronchitis.
Okay.
So she was able to push for a play date. But apparently she was like really pushy at the play date. So when she asked again for the play date, they were like, no, not allowed. Because
Okay.
like Robert would say something wrong or something that like sounded not, I guess, ritzy or something. And she like kick him under the table or kind of like tell him not to do it. And he was younger than JFK as well. So it was it's weird to have like a play date between like a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old.
I mean, no, not necessarily, but maybe because I was the 10-year-old having to play with the 7-year-old.
Yeah.
So,
But like, yeah.
yeah, it is what it is.
So
Kids are kids.
some articles indicated that he didn't excel in its atmosphere as being surrounded by peers considered better, like he considered was better off than him.
Yeah.
So
Which they probably were.
They were. And so he would act out and get poor grades and he would bounce around from prep school to prep school.
He
But
was
then
probably getting teased a lot.
it's like I couldn't find anything about him being teased either.
Well, no, because they're not going to talk about yeah.
And then her former headmaster said he was rather charming, pleasant society boy. Every girl had a crush on him. And like the articles that came out in 1986 when this happened had
Yeah.
very differing stories. Some say he came from a really rich family.
Well, see, I'm wondering if, because that's what I was going to wonder, but she was an immigrant. And it
But she
doesn't
was a
really seem,
nurse.
like the dad was like doing too
No.
much.
So he even
it's-
talks about his poor upbringing in like later interviews. But I think when like the newspapers started getting these stories,
Yeah.
they were just kind of nitpicking
Well,
which parts they liked.
I don't know if like my thought process is so like tainted because of like current news stuff going on with
Yeah.
like the college scandals, but it's sort of like if he was like getting kicked out of these schools but still getting scholarships, is like, was there something else that was going on where like he was like, that's where I'm at, where it was like
Maybe
a bribery
like because
type thing?
his mom was like a private nurse.
Yeah, because then when you
She had
mentioned
more
JFK, I was
access.
like, oh well,
Yeah.
JFK probably she would have been able to like get it there. But then when you said that they never wanted another play date, I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well maybe not so much that. But
I think because she was a private nurse, she got like more access because it still lived in like the Upper East Side like area and stuff.
I wonder, like, it's really weird that you'd have some articles saying that he wasn't a rich family, and then other articles saying that he
Yeah,
was.
it was super confusing when I was reading about the story.
Yeah. Okay.
But like I think now they've settled on the fact that he grew up in a poor household and got scholarships.
Yeah.
But back then they were trying to like build the story. Like the story is trying to build to him being like a privileged, person, and then he does shitty
Yeah.
things.
I mean,
That's what they're trying to build the story up to.
I would
right?
definitely argue the whole privilege with the fact that like he went to like these private schools, like, or these affluential schools and stuff like that. That maybe they're like playing that up, or it's
Yeah.
like, look at this guy that like went to all these like fancy schools.
And then
but-
like some
yeah.
articles were just like, well, he came from an affluent family and blah blah blah. And I'm like, nowhere else says that except this one article. And then another article says something.
Yeah.
It's very,
So okay. Yeah. So it's just people feeding off each other's.
Yeah, it's very like one piece of misinformation that someone picks up and then they all run with it,
Yeah.
which still happens.
Telephone
to
game.
this day.
Oh, it does all the time.
Yeah. So Robert was accepted to Boston University, which also didn't make sense if he did terrible in school because that's a great school.
Yeah.
But I guess Boston College is better.
Well, wouldn't Boston University be better than Boston College?
No, it's weird. Some of the names are weird. Boston
Okay, yeah.
College, yeah, it's super. I think.
I have no idea. Doesn't matter.
Don't take my word for it. Anyways, but he only completed one semester. He was asked to leave due to difficulties, one involving a stolen credit card.
He was asked to leave.
Yes, he was asked to leave after a semester because he was stealing shit.
Damn.
He continued to commit other petty thefts and burglaries in connection to his drug and alcohol abuse, which makes sense as well.
Yeah.
He had run-ins with the law, one incident where he was issued a summons for his disorderly conduct. He would rip off the summons and yell at the police as they were leaving, saying some racist stuff that I'm not going to say.
He was being a dick.
Yeah, he was being a dick, and he was very entitled, which kind of makes sense because if you grow up in an atmosphere where everyone else is entitled, you want to act the same way to hide the fact that you're so insecure about yourself too.
Well, yeah, it's sort of how he was probably raised.
Yeah.
Especially from the other people.
And he would later enter and be discharged from an addiction treatment center. So they did, like, his parents did try to, like, fix him up because
Yeah.
they still see a lot of, like, potential in him. He was a very good looking guy.
He was very expensive.
He was very
apparently.
expensive. He was very good looking. He was very charming. And you know what that means? He's going to be a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Because his good looks are going to get him to places where
Was he good looking?
he was. That was the big thing about him, that like all the girls every girl would turn to look at him. But in 1986, when Robert was 19, he started to frequent an Irish bar pub club thing located in the Upper East Side in Manhattan. Dorian's Red Hand was a popular hangout for rich teens between the age of 17 to 23 because they were known to sell to minors, which I watched in Gossip Girl, and it makes sense because, like, if you're really rich,
Oh yeah,
You let it slide.
fucking money will get you anything.
Yeah.
Regardless of your age.
the young
I need to
clientele
know.
was who would use this bar and others as a place to meet other underage singles, and often led to casual sex in the nearby Central Park.
Ew.
Like outdoor sex, I've never done outdoor sex. It just feels like gross because of dirt. It's people like have sex on the beach. I'm like, it just feels like a lot of sand,
Yeah.
and you don't want to get sand in there. No one wants to get
No,
sand in
I don't
there.
need. I don't need the
I'm an
extra
adult.
exfoliation.
I have a bed. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. I have.
You're like, oh, I don't
But
know
not
that.
on a beach, and like it just really depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just. I mean,
But it's a
humans used to solely have sex outside. So
Humans used to do lots of other things that
Yeah.
we don't do anymore.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
So this is where Robert met Jennifer Levin, a beautiful 18-year-old who had recently moved to Soho, which is
Her
a neighborhood.
last name 11.
Levin.
Oh, Levin.
Yeah, like without the first E, but
Yeah,
just that's
I
it.
would like Jennifer
Levin.
11. God, that would. I would
mean,
hate
that
to
would-
have that name.
I don't know. I mean, there's people with last name like Dick and
Yeah, well, I
Butts.
feel bad for them too. So
I told Nick that if his last name was Dick, I'd totally take his last name. 'cause
Nick
I don't-
Dick. Oh my God, could you imagine? His parents would have hated him to name him Nick Dick.
Oh man.
Nick Pick Dick.
Oh my god. It's like he wouldn't have any friends.
We'll pick Nick Dick.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry.
So Jennifer had a magnetic personality, and her father was a successful Soho realtor. So she came from a pretty nice family as well. And her family recalled her, like, there's a story of her where she was riding a cab, and then she told the cab she was really nervous because she was about to take her driver's test. And before long, he turned off his meter and was teaching her how to parallel park. Because she was like, you know, when you meet someone who's just that kind of person, you want to like drop everything and just do everything for them because you're so pretty. When they're that
Okay.
age, like there's that like
I don't know.
very popular girl personality to her.
Yeah.
yeah,
I know that there are people out there that are like that.
yeah. She was one of those people.
But was
is
she
what I'm saying.
nice, or was she just
It's,
like?
well, after you,
Was she using her pussy magic
well,
for
after
good or for bad?
when you're 18 and then you die, people
Okay.
usually don't say nice things about. They don't say mean things about you anymore.
Yeah, that is.
You don't have to be told that. I'm
is
just saying,
true.
like,
They
it's
usually only
true.
talk about like.
Yeah.
Well,
After you
sometimes,
die, usually people are just like, "Oh no, that's
especially
the
if you're
greatest
the victim
person."
of a crime.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I feel like if I'm ever murdered, people are just gonna be like, "Oh, she was so nice." I'm like, "No, she fucking wasn't."
Yeah. Don't fucking lie. I'll come back and haunt you.
No, just
You
lie
tell
for
everybody
me.
what a
Tell
bitch I was.
Tell everyone that I saved orphans and I was all that.
She was like Mother Teresa.
That's what you do, though. So it's really hard to tell if she was a nice person or not, but it doesn't matter. She was 18. She could
Who cares?
Yeah.
Like she was probably a really nice girl, and at the end of the day, she didn't deserve to
Didn't
die.
deserve to what happens.
And I don't even know what happened to her.
So she had saved $1,600 over the summer working at a restaurant
That's a lot of money in '86.
to attend a junior college that year.
Okay.
So, like, you know, it does
She
seem
was
like
saving up her money to pay for her own way in school.
So she, like, seemed like at least she was a responsible young adult. Better than I did because I definitely got a job, but I wasted it immediately on clothes.
Student loans.
I didn't get student loans until
did.
later because if you're really poor, financial aid will cover you.
Ah.
If you're really, really poor, financial aid was just like, here's the money to go to school.
You can pay us for the rest of your life.
You don't pay it back.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
got a
it's
loan
funny.
so that I can live off campus in my last 2 years, but it was the student loan was
See,
only like
I got a loan so that I could live on campus.
yeah. Well, I lived on campus, but like slightly.
And it was
off.
just a vacation for 2 years.
That's great though.
Paid vacation by the government and my family.
So, anyways, unfortunately, she wouldn't be able to. She will never be able to do either. She didn't get to go to college or get her driver's license
Well,
because everything falls apart for her before long. So Robert and Jennifer had gone on 2 to 3 dates. Some say they were lovers, but it's just his word at this point. So who fucking knows if they had just met for the first time.
Yeah.
On August 26, 1986, Robert and Jennifer met at Dorian's. It was a packed venue that night as many college-bound kids were making their last goodbyes. Robert and Jennifer were seen having a long, animated conversation and around 3:45 headed towards Central Park, 5 blocks away. At 6:20, a cyclist found Jennifer's dead body. And this is 6:20 a.m.
Oh,
They had
okay,
left at
sorry.
3:45 a.m. Sorry.
Okay,
in case
sorry.
it wasn't
I thought it was in
Yeah.
the afternoon. Okay.
So in the morning, at 6:20, a cyclist found her dead body. Her dress had been pulled over her hips and her bra wrapped around her neck. Later that afternoon, as police started to do routine interviews, they stopped by Robert's residence. It was there that they noticed that he had vivid scratch marks on both sides of his face, which, yeah. So he initially said that they were cat scratches before he was taken into questioning, which...
Damn.
Yeah.
Cat scratches.
And then he changed his story a couple of times, saying like, "Oh, my cat was declawed," or like some weird, like he couldn't keep his story straight. Yeah. But finally, he settled on this story. That night, he made a formal statement of what happened. He said that he and Jennifer had gone from the bar to Central Park where they had rough sex, including a bondage game in which Jennifer tied Robert's wrists with her panties.
Okay.
Jennifer had explicitly asked Robert for rough sex, which is what he said. He said something went wrong and she hurt me. I told her to stop. She wouldn't. Robert said she hurt his genitals as she stimulated him. After freeing his hands, he said he pulled her backwards and hit her once.
Okay.
So the police agreed only on the fact that Robert killed Jennifer, but didn't really think the rest of it was true. They didn't agree about his statement of only hitting her once. The bruise and bites on her body indicated she fought for her life.
Yeah.
And around her neck was a bright red hemorrhages indicating strangulation. So there's no way that he just hit her once and then...
Yeah.
Yeah. The medical examiner estimated the time of her death at approximately 6 a.m., which is 20 minutes before the cyclist found her.
Jesus.
And her underwear was found 50 yards or 46 meters away. So if his hands were tied by her underwear, then did he like somehow throw it that many meters away after like...
Well, when he finished killing her, he probably ran off and realized...
I feel like he like started raping her and then she was running and then like tackled her probably a couple of meters away. But it wasn't that his hands were tied behind his back and somehow just threw.
No, I don't think that it was that situation. I think that I didn't think that it was a situation where the underwear was off and she was taken somewhere else. I thought that he just threw the fucking underwear as he was running away.
Oh, I thought no, he wasn't. He didn't run away. By the way, I didn't get to that part yet.
Oh,
yeah. It would later come out that after Robert killed Jennifer, he sat nearby staring at Jennifer's dead body. Because he killed her at 6 a.m. and the cyclist found her at 6:20. So he was there the whole time.
So he was there when the cyclist was there? And then
he was there when the cops came. Yeah.
Okay,
so
what a fucking creeper.
He said, "I've never seen a dead body before. Her eyes were open and she's not moving. And I was just scared. I didn't do anything. I just sat there." Because I don't think he's never murdered someone before.
Yeah.
This is his first time.
I believe it.
And I don't think it was he maliciously tried to murder her, but then I think things got way out of hand.
Well, I mean, it depends on if he was trying to I mean, I have no idea.
I always hope people don't try to maliciously murder people.
Yeah, but
we've read enough stories to know that.
Yeah, like he was obviously gonna rape her.
Yeah, he was for sure gonna rape her, but I think she fought back, and that was the reason why it
on her body. Man,
it could be a sex thing too, though.
Yeah, it's just
This is so when the police arrived, he was asked to leave the scene.
Oh, so he was there when the police arrived?
Yeah. And then the police apparently stopped. Like, this is Robert's, like, when he was being interviewed.
Okay.
He said that he was sitting there, and then the police were like, "You need to get out of here because there's a murder scene." And I'm like, you wouldn't question him?
You wouldn't be like, "Hey, why are you sitting over there staring at this body?"
Was so different in 1986 that this is how it was? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Did they think that it was just a hooker, so they didn't care?
Maybe.
Sex worker, not hooker. Sorry.
Yeah, but maybe. Which is really...
That is really bizarre.
Yeah. So he was charged with second-degree murder because you can't do first degree because it doesn't sound like he planned it.
It wasn't. Yeah. They can at the point because it's not.
There's no proof that he planned it. Yeah. So after hearing Robert's explanation, Assistant DA Steve Saraco said, "I've been in this business for a while, and you're the first man I've seen raped in Central Park," which sounds really fucked up.
That is the rudest fucking fuck that dude.
So there's so many sexist things in all the articles. There was someone who was just like, "You're the first man I've ever met who was raped," and I'm like, This is really
No,
messed up.
yeah,
This was how they
that's-
used to think back in the day.
It's how they think now.
Yeah.
It's just
It was, they were more blatant about it. They were more likely to say it out loud in comparison to now where they won't say it out loud.
Oh
They'll
yeah,
think
no.
it.
You were if you men don't get raped.
Yeah,
that's why the wording for rape was like that's why that had to get changed. And I think that's first of all, I don't think it's changed across the board. And I think that it's still like I think in a lot of places it still doesn't include men. It's still vaginal penetration.
Yeah, even though men definitely get raped, and it's still really fucked up. And I'm not saying in this situation he was raped because that's what they try to say. Yeah,
and there doesn't need to be penetration. For there to be rape. And for the record, like a body's response is just like it's just a body's response.
I've heard of
men can have erections while being.
I've heard of women
raped.
who like it'll get kind of wet and stuff because it's trying to save the body. It doesn't want to get hurt.
It's the body's reaction. Women can have orgasms
and still be raped
because the body is just it's just a sensation. It's just the body reacting.
So what we're saying is that you can get raped no matter what gender you are.
Yeah, and it's very upsetting that he's just like, in all my years, we've never had him. And I bet you thousands upon thousands of men have been raped in that park.
And I bet you that they don't come out and say anything because they don't want to be made fun of by people like him.
And honestly, like, wouldn't he, if she had been like hurting his genitals, like, wouldn't he just be able to pull down his pants and be like, show like, where like some bruising or whatever the fuck, like
it didn't happen
that day. I know, but I'm just saying,
it's like, that day. Like, but then like a lot of
nowadays
also,
they should do.
Males don't like coming out as victims, which is like a society thing.
Yeah,
which I get. And back then, I'm pretty sure
men can't be raped.
I know it's such garbage
because men can't be victims because men are always the perpetrators and men have to be big and strong and women are victims. It's just
which is why we cover so many women murderers. I think.
It is, but at the same time, it's also because like men are dicks. Yeah, but it's all right. I've got some women.
I've got bitches. Some women. Don't worry, we're all terrible people.
Yeah, I am completely fine with talking about how shitty women are because as bad as men are, women have some fucking issues too. But then, like, the police would say, which I don't think that, like, this is just what they said. I'm not 100% on it. The rape scenario seemed unlikely as Robert was more than a foot taller than Jennifer and almost double her weight. That's a bullshit reason. I don't think it happened because I think that he's just a fucking liar. Yeah, I think he's a liar. I think the strangulation was enough to put me towards, nope, this guy definitely killed her. That's really what got me, the strangulation part. I think that he wanted to have sex with her and she turned him down. Yeah, and then, maybe they were just having sex and he wanted it rougher and then he took it way too far. Yeah. And then ended up killing her. Yeah. Either way, it's not okay. So, if she's like, no, then it means you're probably killing her. So. Well, I mean, he had her bra around her throat. Yeah. So I'm wondering, like, did the bra strangle her, or were hands strangle, or what? I don't know. Did the hands strangle? Yeah, it was like the hemorrhaging at the throat, and it's like, what kind of bra? Like, I have a million questions, but and at the end of the day, he definitely killed her. He killed her. I don't think that he raped her, but I think that men can still be raped, and I think that the police response to it is shit. And what he does afterwards is just every explanation of what kind of shitty like mindset he was in. He is 19. I'm not saying that like because of his age to be forgiven for it. I'm just saying that like when you're that age, you're a much shittier person than when you're grown up. Usually, because you think that you know everything and you don't, and your hormones are still going, but you need to be an adult. And like we really don't know anything about what was going on with his upbringing or anything like that. No, that's all we know. All we know is that his mom really wanted him to, and we really don't know what happened with this girl either. And I'm not blaming the girl at all. She's 100% a victim. But don't worry, the media will. So before being booked, Robert said to his father, "That fucking bitch, she didn't leave me alone." So I don't know like what, like that's what he said. But right before being booked, they allowed him to call his dad. And that's what he said. I'm not really sure how to take that.
I don't know if like they were arguing about something. Maybe they were arguing about something.
Maybe they were.
They were having a lovers quarrel, and then she was really upset about something, and then they went to the park, and then something happened.
She wouldn't leave me alone.
Yeah.
I mean,
or maybe that's just a story.
I mean, maybe it's
paint.
just a red herring, but
Yeah.
like it sort of just seems like maybe like he wanted to, and like I don't know.
So it was seen, as seen too many times by any media. They labeled the crime as the Preppie murder and painted Robert as a preppy altar boy with a promising future, which you've definitely heard before.
Oh, what?
Which will mean he gets a lenient sentencing because that's what happens.
Okay, yeah. This family, I don't know what's going on with this family. I don't know what's going on with these news articles. So why they're not talking about some of, like, maybe they did like a media silence and had to purge a bunch of shit. But like,
but if anyone,
I feel like he may have been maybe not like super well off, but I feel like a little bit.
I think his friends were really well off, and because he was very charismatic, he had a lot of friends who were rich.
Yeah, he had people in high places.
When he we pay bail, like the person who owned the bar helped pay for the bail. So he was that kind of person. Like no one wanted to believe that this guy did it. Everyone believed that he was innocent.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
it's easy.
It's one of those things where these people in the community would have known her and him, so it's hard for them to be like, "Oh my God, she was so amazing."
She had recently moved.
Oh my God, he was so amazing.
It sounded like she lived with her mom before, and then she had recently moved to Soho with her father.
Okay.
So I think they knew him more. But she went to like a nice, what is a preppy school as well. So I don't. But I think like you always blame the girl.
Yeah, well, because she can't defend herself.
No,
and
on top of that, this is 86. You
Yeah.
always blame the woman for everything,
yeah,
right?
it's always because we can't ruin the future of this promising white male
Exactly.
named Robert Chambers.
And look at how beautiful he is, I didn't think he was that good looking, but I imagine that like when he spoke and stuff, he was probably like very magnetic, you know?
Oh.
You know what I mean? He has a like rich, privileged person look.
I mean, I guess I could see how some people would.
And I'm pretty sure like if you add that with a lot of charisma, if you combine his looks with a lot of charisma, you get like holy shit kind of feels out of him.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
When he grows his beard. Okay. Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So, in contrast, many media sources attacked Jennifer's character because that's really classy.
Because they were,
with headlines such as "How Jennifer Courted Death" and "Sex Play Got Rough."
God, that fucking his family paid for those stories.
I just
because it's 86, right? Because like right now we're used to like 2018 where we have like social media and everything's instant. Like this probably wouldn't have been contained, but it probably would have been a little bit small at first. And then it's just like you have to control the narrative. And this family probably had connections and they knew how to control the narrative.
And if his family didn't, someone's did. One of his friends or someone he knew.
Somebody
had connections. Especially after finding out that like the guy who owns the bar posted his bail. It's like, what kind of guy was this that everyone was willing to do? Maybe he had like Charles Manson. But maybe the guy
posting the bail from the bar was like that's a threat because they're like, hey, if you don't like help us out with this, we're gonna expose what you do at this bar selling drugs to minors, blah blah blah. I mean, I watched a lot of like Gossip Girl and like 90210, and that just it seems like an episode of 90210.
It does.
Like it has
definitely
that
does.
feel to it.
So the case would popularize the strategy later termed the rough sex defense.
Oh my gosh.
The defense sought to depict Jennifer as a promiscuous woman who kept a sex diary. Even though no such diary existed, a lot of news like outlets did run a story saying, well, she kept a sex diary. Because as soon as someone says it, that's what you run with.
Oh my God.
How fucked up is this shit?
Because it's the 80s.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
And there's no fact checking in the internet. You can't just ask.
Oh my gosh.
So reading this just made me really mad. But I guess like the murder I'm gonna talk about right now is gonna be even more maddening. It gets okay. So he was released on bail, and he roamed around for 2 years before his trial.
Oh my fucking God.
Or
What?
Shortly after he was charged, Robert was recorded with several young women in lingerie. And at one point in the tape, Robert strangled a doll, like a Barbie doll, and said to the camera, "Oops, I think I killed it." This was after.
Okay, here's the thing.
After.
And it's not to make any excuse because that's so fucking gross and repulsive. But like, I can literally see just a bunch of like college guys sitting around and joking about it.
I can see that.
It's not to say that it's okay or whatever, but it's just like, he looks like such a douchebag that he would be that kind of guy, and he would have friends like that.
Why
that they
record it?
Because they're fucking assholes. And he probably thought that he was so well connected that like
he can get away with
it.
And
like,
he gets a slap on the wrist.
Exactly. People were probably like, don't worry about it. Like, you're fine. I'm going to take care of you, bro.
Well, he was defended by a criminal defense lawyer who was very well known named Jack T. Littman. And he's famous for using the temporary insanity defense on behalf of Richard Herron, who bludgeoned his ex-girlfriend, Bonnie Garland, in 1977. So when I read the story, it was fucked up. She had broken up with him, and he had gone to her house while she was sleeping, used a hammer, bludgeoned her to death. And then drove home, and then later on was like, "Oh, I feel really bad about it." So no one knew that she had been bludgeoned to death because it was in the middle of the night. Her parents went to go check on her. She was gurgling in her own blood, and that Jack guy was able to defend it, saying it was temporary insanity, and send him. And then so like the Catholic diocese also said like, he's such a good boy.
Money.
So. Like
he went
to like a treatment center for like a couple of years, and then he was out. That was it. So they're both Yale students, and then they branded him as like, well, he has a bright future. He went to Yale. I'm like, so did she. She fucking went to Yale. She didn't want to mad. So that was his lawyer. That's how good of a lawyer he got. So.
Hey, let me tell you about this person that helped out my buddy 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He can totally help you.
Get you out.
He can totally get you out. It's a sure thing. Dude. I don't know what it is about my fucking conspiracy paranoia brain, but it's just like the money runs deep.
This is like
money runs
on top
deep
of that. Like if you think of like Gossip Girl in New York, this was upper crust New York as well. So if you kind of put yourself in that like Gossip Girl atmosphere of like really rich people getting away with things.
Oh yeah,
it makes a lot of sense
for sure.
But especially in 1986 when there's no internet and there's no like anything else like that.
Totally fucking. And wasn't the mob was the mob still active in the 80s? Or the mob is probably still active now. What am I saying? Like
they're just better at hiding it nowadays. So
they pay their police officers more.
So Robert's trial began January 4th, 1988, and lasted approximately 3 months.
Jesus.
The jury deliberated for 9 days,
but
was unable to reach a unanimous decision.
Okay, so I think there's some jury tampering.
Yeah, there is. Or because they
I thought you were about to tell me that there was.
Oh no. But I think also like you look at him and then you're like, and then he just presented himself so well, and you're like, well, that's such a nice, fine young man.
Gosh, people need to stop. Like, if you're gonna look at someone who's ugly and like and beat up and all that and be like, that's a murderer, or just the color of their skin and say that's a murderer.
I'm like,
you don't get to be like, well, he's so pretty, he can't hurt anybody. It's like Ted Bundy fucking shot that shit down real fucking quick.
There's so many people who don't think he did it. There's too many people who
don't think Ted Bundy.
Some people, there's actually conspiracy blogs and groups who really don't believe he did it. They're like, there's no actual evidence. Like, for reals. They're like, look at him. He was so promising. He worked for Yeah, it's crazy.
You guys should go work for Brock Turner, man. They probably do support Brock Turner.
Oh, there's tons of people who still do.
Know.
Yeah. Ugh. So Robert accepted a plea bargain where he pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 15 years in prison.
At least he pled guilty.
So he served all 15 years at Auburn State Prison because
that's shocking.
He was a shithead. and he assaulted a correction officer.
Oh my
And was
gosh.
cited repeatedly for weapons and drug infractions. So he never got to.
Yeah, this was probably a dude that probably like didn't like getting told what to do and was finally put into a place where like, now you're not top shit.
No, he spent a third of his time, 5 years, in solitary confinement.
Ooh, that's
He was a shithead in prison as well. So he
he's
was
out now.
He was released February 14th, 2003, and settled down with his girlfriend who stayed with him this whole time, all 15 years, Sean Koval,
I'm sorry, he was dating someone
the whole time.
while he murdered this other girl.
No, like right
Okay.
after that,
Okay.
when he did that video, after 2 years he was out, he started dating a girl
Stand
who
by
was
your man.
in that video with the Barbie doll video.
Oh my
She was one of
gosh.
the girls in lingerie. She stayed with him.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, he must have like this personality, and like people did say, like in all the stories I read, that he was like the guy. He was, he was Chuck Bass, basically, kind of
He
dangerous.
sounds and looks a little.
Yeah, so he's kind of dangerous, kind of
Yeah.
a fucking dickhead, but people really want him. I think that's what it
Probably
was.
because he was dangerous. And yeah.
So
Ew.
he also settled a wrongful death lawsuit with Jennifer's parents, who sued him for $25 million.
Good for them.
As he did not contest, Robert agreed to pay $25 million, agreeing to pay all lump sums he receives. Like if he got like a movie deal or a book deal, he would give all that money to her parents. But the thing is that if he never does those things, he'll never have to give them money, as well as agreeing to pay all like 10% of all of his future income.
So he's gonna pay them. He's gonna pay him basically 10% for the rest of his life,
Yes.
and
Any money he makes.
and then any money he makes off the profit of their daughter's death.
Yes. If he ever chooses to do so.
Which
Up to $25 million.
I mean,
I guess, whatever. And so shortly after,
this dude is so like.
so
It's so like, ugh, whatever. It's only 10%. Like they must be rich. Like it really must be like a situation.
that's why
where,
like it was very confusing when I found out that he came from a poor family.
I mean, maybe the mom when she came here was poor, but she like something has to like.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Or maybe he's just really good friends with someone who is rich,
he didn't, like-
who's covering for him.
I mean, at least he settled on and they gave him some money.
Yeah.
Unless he decides that he's never going to work for the rest of his life.
Well, unless you do a ton of illegal things, which
Yeah.
So shortly before Thanksgiving 2004, Robert was stopped in his Saab driving with a suspended driver's license. A search of the car found an envelope containing unknown substances. On November 29th, 2004, Robert was charged with possession of heroin and cocaine, driving with a suspended license, and driving a car without a valid inspection sticker.
All you got to do, bro, is just stay away from the drugs and get an Uber. Like,
This is too long ago, 2004.
I know.
Taxis
I know.
are expensive.
Get a
too.
yeah.
You're in New York. Take the subway.
Yeah. It's in the 80s. Take the fucking subway.
Yeah.
And stay away from the drugs, man. Drugs are bad.
So he pleaded guilty in July 2005 and was sentenced to a reduced sentence of 90 days in jail and fined $200. On October 22nd, 2007, Robert was again arrested, this time in his own apartment for selling controlled substances.
Dude.
Which makes sense as to why he agreed, because now that I think about it, it's like, well, they would never be able to take his money away if he's a drug dealer.
Or if he's, like,
As if he's illegally making money, they'd never know.
Also, like, I mean, when he went to jail, he was probably like, I mean, I'm gonna be in jail for 15 years. I'm not gonna be able to get a job afterwards.
So
Like,
why try? Or I guess if you married really rich, then he wouldn't have to worry about it either.
Yeah, I'm
But
starting to
his-
wonder why the girlfriend stayed.
I think he was like had that personality.
Yeah, but still, I
maybe
mean,
she had
what
really
was
low
she doing for
self-esteem.
15 years? Like, go find another dick to ride. She probably did.
She probably
I don't
did.
know. I mean, that's
Maybe not though. 15. Oh.
15 years.
So
And then some.
cops said that Robert struggled with officers
Yeah.
and who tried to handcuff him. And so like one of the detectives actually suffered a broken thumb as they tried to fight him to get him in the cuffs in the first place.
Dude.
Robert and his girlfriend Sean were charged with running a cocaine operation out of the apartment.
God damn.
And this was like a
cook.
really nice apartment that they were able to get for really cheap because Sean's, I think, mother died, and so they were able to get the rent control apartment. So I was just like, and so everyone in like the comment section was just like, they got a fucking apartment in like Upper Manhattan for how much money? It was like 1900, but still,
Yeah.
like, come on. So in August 11th, 2008, the Manhattan DA's office announced that Robert had pleaded guilty for selling drugs. And on September 2nd, 2008, Robert was sentenced to 19 years on a drug charge, meaning he got less time for murdering someone than for selling drugs.
Yeah, that's gross. But it's also like his third offense with the drugs.
Yeah, but I mean, same time, it's like, it is kind of gross.
Yeah.
So the song I was talking about was a very popular song that didn't have a ton of radio play, but it was by the Killers, who had a song called Jenny Was a Friend of Mine. And a line of the song says, there ain't no motive for this crime. Jenny was a friend of mine. And like, the fact that when they sing it live, they replaced that line with she couldn't scream while I held her down. They replaced that line with she couldn't scream while I held her throat. So there's like a suspicion that it might have to do with this murder, but only that Cracked article and the Wikipedia page mentioned it, but no other article I found talks about it being a connection. And if you go on a Wikipedia page for that song, it's not mentioned on there either. It's only mentioned in the specific murder. So I don't know if like
It's just someone's trying to like
make a connection.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to
Killers
mention
from Boston. Did they actually know?
I think they're from Vegas. They're from Vegas. They're a Vegas
Okay,
band.
so-
But I mean, this was a Preppie murder. So this was like a big murder case.
Yeah, but still, that's odd.
Yeah.
That they would. I mean, I don't know.
Apparently, they have a murder series. They do like they did like a trilogy of like murder songs.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I don't know anything about the Killers, so I wouldn't know. But I mean, when your band name is the Killers, I guess that makes sense.
I think the frontman's like a really devout Mormon too.
Is he?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think so.
have
I
no
know
idea.
like they're really religious, so
That's
or one of them
interesting.
were. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, thank you very much for that story.
No problem. I was afraid that you had heard it before, but
I think I did.
yeah, I think like
I
the
think
Preppie murder sounded familiar.
the Preppie murder sounded familiar. I think I have heard that, especially the rough sex argument.
Yes.
And I know that there's like another one, another murder from Australia where that was like, I think was going on maybe last year or the year before, where he was also doing like where he was saying she jumped off the balcony and then other people were
I
saying
remember that.
he
Yeah.
pushed her. But thank you so much. It was really great.
No problem.
All right, so I'm doing a old murder today as well,
All right.
and it's old. So most of this story is described in letters written by Raphael Holinshed, which, fun fact, Raphael's writings, a majority of them, would later become one of the major sources for William Shakespeare in his plays. Which I thought was really wild. And actually, this story would later be influenced in a lot of William Shakespeare's stuff. So,
Okay.
but not like all one play. It was like little bits all over the place.
It's obviously the murder of Julius Caesar, right?
No. I am doing the story of Alice Arden.
All right.
And Alice Arden was born in 1516 in Kent, England. And she was born into a very well-to-do family. She was young and tall and was well favored of shape and countenance, which apparently is face or facial expressions. So she was really beautiful, quite the catch, had a lot going for her, had money. But it's the 1500s. So she gets married off to a dude.
Yeah.
That,
the highest bidder.
Apparently, well, he wasn't the highest bidder.
Really?
Because he was just a tailor, but apparently he had something going on for him. I don't really know too much. But
A lot of blackmail material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so she gets married to Thomas Arden, and then they receive Faversham Abbey as a gift, which was like this super old monastery. But they get like this huge plot of land. But it's since been dissolved, so don't bother trying looking for it because it's gone.
Don't try to stay there overnight.
Don't be like, I heard about this place on a podcast, I'm gonna go hit it up. It's not there. So Thomas must have been a bore because Alice starts having an affair with Thomas's arch nemesis and rival, Richard Mosby. And first of all, I thought it was so fucking funny that she's like, he has a rival. Like,
did a lot of people back in the day have rivals?
Yeah, rivals
I don't think I have
and
a
nemesis.
rival.
Like, it was just like they were both tailors. And so like it was like a competition between these tailors. I don't know. But anyways, she starts having an affair with Richard, and the two aren't secret about it at all. Richard is coming over to the house at all hours of the day and night. He's staying for dinner. He's having sex with her. Like, they're holding hands out in public.
Jesus.
Like, it's ballsy. Mm-hmm. For Alice, I think, in the 1500s. Yeah, but she's a well-to-do girl, so maybe she can just kind of do whatever she wants.
Maybe you get away with more if you're well-to-do.
And if the husband doesn't have a problem with it, then like whatever.
I wonder if her husband was gay.
Well, he was just turning a blind eye because he didn't want to cut ties with the family.
Oh, okay.
So he was like,
I thought maybe he found another lover, but like, it was secret.
He was a very like meek, kind of man.
And how did he get her?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It might have been like the parents were like, maybe Alice was being punished, so she was married off to Tom. Like, I don't know. They ended up together.
Maybe Tom is they're actually having like a throuplet. They're all together.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, so, no? Okay. That would have been kind of like interesting.
Yeah. So that made Alice despise him more because like she's like, I'm having this affair with this guy, and
I want you to leave.
Yeah,
me.
I want you to do
something. Yeah.
But it's the 1500s, and women can't divorce their husbands because we're their property, and she's like left with very few options. So she's just like, well, I guess I'll just have to kill you because she's the fucking rich one. She's the one, like, she's not going to get anything other than maybe her freedom for killing him. And like, people used to die all the time back then. Yeah. So
a little bit of poison will get you a long way.
So she tries to kill him first by poisoning.
Yes.
She mixes the milk, or she like goes into town. She's like talking to some guy, and they tell her like, okay, got to get this like bowl, this coriander, and then you gotta put the poison in, and then you gotta put the milk in, and you stir it up, and you give it to him. That'll be good. And so she goes home. She gets the poison. She gets the milk and the bowl.
I wonder if the coriander just like this. The taste
it's a
so strong.
coriander. I don't know.
Coriander.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the.
I thought you added like the herb coriander.
No. I said coriander, but then I said coriander.
Yeah, but it just sounds so similar.
Yeah, because I also was like, coriander is a poison? Like, it was really weird when I was reading it. I had to look up what coriander even was. Yeah. So when she makes it, she like completely forgets about the order. So she puts the milk and then the poison.
Oh.
And she gives it to him for breakfast. And after one or two bites, Thomas is like, ew, this is gross. I'm not eating this anymore. And I don't know, he probably threw it at her.
I mean, at least he didn't keep eating it like some people would have.
Yeah, he was like, this is terrible. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to eat this. And so Alice had failed her first attempt because she just didn't think about how it was going to taste.
Yeah.
And
they didn't have chocolate back then.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not like she's going to taste it on herself.
No.
Like, to be like, what's this taste like? So then Alice is like, well, I clearly can't do this myself. I'm going to go get some accomplices. So she reaches out to another one of Tom's arch nemesis, Mr. John Green, who was also a tailor in a neighboring town. So I'm thinking there was like some tailor war going on.
Yeah, they're all mad, taking over each
losing clients, and it's just because there's not like there's a lot of jobs back in the 1500s. But yeah, arch nemesis. So she goes to Mr. Green, who was a tailor in the neighboring town, and Tom and John had some beef because John owned the land that was bordering on the backside of Faversham Abbey. Mm-hmm. And then Tom was like, he went and was trying to like claim this part of the town or part of the land, including the house that John was living in. And he was like, this is actually part of the Abbey's land, and took him to court and then won somehow. The article was basically like he stole it. So I think he probably did some shit. And then he kicked John out of the house. And then he didn't even do anything with the fucking land. He just kicked John out. So
just to be a dick.
Yeah, just to be a dick. So Alice is all just like, these two have a real axe to grind. This will be so easy. So she probably like ran her crazy little plotty hands together. And so Mr. Green's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'll totally kill your husband. It'll be great. I'll be able to get you'll give me back my house. Great. Awesome. That's all I want. So he goes and hires a couple men, Mr. Bradshaw, who's a local goldsmith, Sir Richard Cavendish, who was a soldier during the siege of Boulogne. And then at one point they also acquire Black Will, who is an old acquaintance of Bradshaw's, who apparently had committed a lot of horrid murders in France and burglaries, and it's like, well, they have a really good team.
Yeah.
They've got a murderer, a blacksmith, Black Will. He's going to get the job done. And so they go, I'm so sorry for this, Angela. I wrote, John had a pretty good killing team, so now they're going to go and fulfill Alice's killing dream.
Oh my God.
Because I'm so cheesy.
Oh my gosh.
So the group of men go out and they follow Thomas for a few days, but they can't seem to catch him at a good time where they can just like kill him. No good opportunity presents itself. One time Black Will was able to get close to killing him, following him into a lodge in London. But after attempting to gain access to his room, the servant that Thomas was with was like, hey, you can't come in here. And then Blackwell was like, well, I'm here to kill Tom and you. And the guy was like, well, I don't want to die. And so he like closed the door and locked it and like kept the door locked all night. And so Blackwell couldn't get in there too.
Why would he be like?
I don't know. It was like, that's just
sure
what was written. So Will couldn't get in there, couldn't kill the guy, and it was all the servant's fault. And then the following morning, the servant was like, hey, so I've given it some thought. I'll let you kill Tom.
Just don't kill me.
I'll set it up where you can like ambush him on the road home. So he like tells Tom that like his horse is lame or something like that, and so he has to stay behind with the horse, but he'll send him with some other people. And so the men like they tried to ambush Tom on the way home, but Tom had convinced a bunch of other acquaintances to travel with him. So Will was unable to isolate him enough to kill him. And Tom was able to return home safely, much to Alice's dismay. So Alice is like, fuck, guys. Like, you guys are screwing this up. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to arrange for my husband not to leave town. On his way to the town, you're going to stop at this one spot, and you're going to get him while he's there. And they're like, cool. So she sends Black Will out again, or she sends Tom out again, and this time it's Black Will and his friend George Shakebag, and they head out, but they go to the wrong place. So as Tom like gets off to his meeting and comes back, they're sitting in this other like the wrong area because they don't know this area at all. And so they miss him. And so once
they
again,
didn't have Google Maps back in the
they didn't have
days.
Google Maps. They took a left instead of a right. It was terrible. So Alice is just like getting so pissed off because she doesn't want to be with him anymore. And
Like, you're supposed to kill one person. How hard is this?
How hard is it? So Alice kicks up another plan because Valentine's Day is fast approaching and there's going to be a large celebration and fair. Alice would be able to get her lover Richard to pick a fight with Tom in public and then kill Tom in a duel. But like it'd be like they'd have a showdown and then Tom would have to like start the fight, so it's like self-defense, not murder.
But does she know her very meek husband?
Yes. Well, that was sort of Richard's like like statement back was like, I don't think Tom's gonna want to engage in this duel, so I'm not gonna do it. And she was like, well, you're not getting sex tonight, get out. And yeah, Alice is like, you know what, fuck it, like this, I'm trying to like set up like some big elaborate scheme is like not working out. We just gotta like kill him right in the house.
Yeah.
So
shove poison down his throat.
Yeah. One I really wish that she would have just poisoned him. She probably would have been able to get away with it. But instead, she decided to do it this way, and now I get to tell you the story. Oh. So one Sunday afternoon, Alice decides to throw herself a little party, and she invites over her murder gang, and she hides Black Will in the closet of their home. He arrives early, and he hangs out in the closet all day. Then they invite over Richard and Richard's sister, Cicely, and everyone sits down to enjoy their dinner. And then after dinner, when everyone is like hanging out and stuff like that, Tom and Richard sit down to play a game of backgammon. They're supposed to be arch nemesis, but for whatever reason, they decided to sit down and play a game together. It didn't make any sense to me.
Maybe that's how they used to be arch nemesis. You just, like when you watch old movies, they sit together and they play chess for some reason. You're like, what are you doing?
It's probably because he's like, well, my wife is fucking you anyways. Like, we're just gonna grin and bear it.
Big happy family.
Yeah, big happy family. So they're playing the game, and then as everyone's like playing the game, Alice gives the signal, and Black Will comes out from the shadows from behind Tom, throws a napkin. Some people called it a napkin. One article called it a towel. It's probably a towel. Threw a napkin over his head and began to strangle him from behind. At which point, Richard steps forward and hits him over the head with a pressing iron, then takes out his dagger and slits Tom's throat.
He could just been poisoned.
Alice then takes the dagger and stabs Tom 7 or 8 times until he finally dies. Then they transport his body to the meadow behind the house. Then they go inside and partied the rest of the night.
Yes.
Very loudly. They were playing the music really loud. The daughter came downstairs. The servants were playing. It was just so that because they wanted the neighbors to think that Tom was, 1, still alive, and 2, just partying and dancing the night away. Alice then paid Black Will £10. John gave him a horse, and Black Will, he left. He was like,
peace out.
Peace out. Glad we got this done. As the party continued on, some of the servants became suspicious of the disappearance of Tom. And so Alice is always like, well, I don't know. Why don't you go look for him outside? But it was nighttime, so they couldn't find him. And the following morning, Alice alerts the town that her husband is missing. And I'm sure she probably would have won an award for her fantastic acting skills.
She was Meryl Streep.
Because she had been planning this for a while, so it was probably really great. I would have loved to have seen it. So the townspeople gather together and they decide to do a search. They started scanning for him, and then eventually they find the corpse behind the house in the garden. And immediately the townspeople are suspicious because they found him in a nightgown and some slippers. So if he had been dancing the night away and all this different stuff, why is he in it? And it had gone missing during the party.
That when they were
because
the body?
They changed his clothes.
That makes no sense.
Because he was eating dinner when they killed him, and then they changed his
fine.
clothes. Yeah, if they would have left him,
oh my gosh,
if they would have put him in.
Left him in his clothes.
Yeah, well, changed him out of those clothes, but put him in another set of clothes. I don't know, or leave him in the clothes he was. I don't know. These idiots, for all the planning that they went through, and it was because it had snowed, and so there were footprints all over the place. So they were also able to track it backwards.
They weren't very smart.
So now they go back into the house and they're able to search the house, and in the house they find the blood and hair, which leads them to believe that he was murdered in the parlor because that's where he was. And then after searching the parlor, they find the knife and the bloody clothes, and it's just you guys didn't even dispose of the shit all that.
They didn't even try.
Yeah. And since Alice hasn't exactly been the greatest and most loyalist wife, everyone is immediately that
she fucking did it. Yeah.
And when they provide all the evidence before her, she immediately admits her guilt and names all of the accomplices. So Alice is later found guilty of petty treason, and is burned at the stake in 1551. All the servants involved were also burned at the stake, including the daughter, even though the daughter wasn't even like a part of it. They killed her anyways, because that's what they did. They were able to track down Bradshaw and Richard Mosby and his sister Cicely, even though Cicely didn't do anything. But because she was there, they were all hanged.
How did everyone survive those days? If you just killed all the childbearing women, how do you survive?
I think
How
about,
do we survive as society?
I think about that
Burning
question
witches.
all of the time.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck did we survive? Like, when you it's crazy. But yeah, think of how many more people there would be.
Not that we need more people.
Not that we need more people, but maybe we would have ended up with better people. So Black Will is able to escape for a while, but then eventually he's able to get caught. But he takes his own life during his arrest.
Well, it's better than being burnt alive.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with him.
And then finally, there's a local legend that says that no grass grows on the spot where Tom Arden's dead body was found. And that's the story of Alice Arden, the wife killer or the husband killer, who tried to murder her husband several times and then finally succeeded and then was burned alive.
Because she was so dumb.
She was so dumb. Like,
she was a terrible murderer.
she might have been pretty and stuff like that, but she definitely wasn't going to school.
Super dumb.
I mean,
Dumb as a
all you
rock.
had to do was one thing, Alice, and that
Yeah.
was put the poison and then the milk.
So
you don't
dumb.
sit the poison on top of the milk, then all they're going to drink is the milk or the poison, and they're not going to want to eat it all.
Yeah. This wouldn't have been the story we covered though if she just poisoned him.
No.
So
Well, actually, I probably still would have.
it would have been very short. You'd have been like, and now we're done now. Bye.
Yay. Okay.
Well, thank you for your story.
Thanks.
And thank you guys for listening.
I hope people are being educated by some of these things and they're being able to learn something new. You can learn like a cool news story to like share at a dinner party.
Yeah. I have so many stories now I tell people.
Like, I don't remember all of the details, but I'll be like, you ever hear about this Korean mall that like
Have you ever heard of the chewy
fell
penis?
down? Have you ever heard? Would you like to tell me a story?
About chewy penis?
Would you like me to tell you a story? Okay. So yeah, that's it for this week, guys. Thanks so much for I was gonna say watching.
Listening.
Thanks so much for listening. Our email address is peoplekeepdying@gmail.com.
In case you have any stories,
comments, we love it all.
review us, rate us. We'd really appreciate it. We're very small, so any sort of traction would be great.
Any engagement is good engagement.
Yes.
And yeah, that's it for this week.
Hopefully you're not dead next week.
Yep. Bye.